There we go. Rolling.
Fantastic.
Grab my tea.
There's yours.
One sugar?
No.
No, good.
A test. Clever test.
Set you up. So karma. Karma. I thought we'd have a chat about karma.
Okay. All right. So,
Well, I watched a video of you chatting with Deus
yeah.
about it, and it makes me laugh actually because he does the thing with karma where he talks. If that doesn't drop, about intent. But I love it because it really does embed it in your mind.
Yeah, it does.
About intent.
Yeah.
What's your take on it in terms of that aspect of karma? Which that's the thing that I would say. I know that he talks about some of the things that he's brought down to sort of teach that aren't necessarily as understood, and I think the intent is a big part of that, isn't it? The intent aspect of karma.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, karma's pretty well known. I mean, across Eastern, esoteric and religious systems, karma's it's the fundamental difference, I think, between one of the fundamental differences between the East and the West. You know, although I think karma is in the Western systems, it's just not as openly understood, and it's almost like a science with the Eastern stuff. But karma, essentially, as most people know, it's like the old phrase, you get out what you put in. Karma's kind of, you get back what you give out.
Yeah.
You know, most people understand that. They understand that karma is, you know, you get back what you do. I don't think people understand, maybe like you said, you know, that the thing that creates karma, the thing that actually manifests karma, it's not an action that creates karma. It's the intent behind the action that creates karma. That's a real big different thing, isn't it?
It's huge. It's actually, when you look into that, it is huge, that aspect of it. But I suppose before we dive into that, because that'll be really interesting to talk about, I think karma, I've found anyway, a lot of people struggle to understand, or not to understand, to accept karma naturally and understandably, because there's no proof.
Yeah, it's hard.
Which is because some of my videos aren't particularly controversial at all. They're pretty, well, some people they may be, but I don't talk about things that are really controversial. But the one thing that I do talk about that normally triggers people quite a lot is karma. Interestingly, a lot of people say, "Well, prove it," and you can't really, can you? You can't necessarily prove it because of the way that it crosses over from one lifetime to another, or you might be sort of.
But you do, if you look, you will notice the ramifications of your action. Yeah,
there are certain
you will
things
notice
that can
the
be
ramifications of your actions. But
but big things that might happen to, if you look at it from a really serious point of view, kids, for example. People say, well, you know, what about kids that are going through enormous suffering? And you can't, you know, that's really hard to talk about, isn't it?
You're going very deep now. Yeah, it is. It is very hard to talk about, and it's and the really difficult thing with karma, even when you understand it, is appreciating that, you know, to fully understand karma, you also have to take on board that reincarnation exists. And this is what you were alluding to a minute ago, that, you know, in other lives. So you can do something in this life, according to the law of karma, you can do something in this life, and it won't be until the next life or another life further down the line, that it becomes, it happens, it manifests. And that's not provable. You can't prove that.
No.
And what you can look at, well, no, you can't prove karma. You aren't going to prove karma. I can't prove God exists to somebody who hasn't had any experiences.
No.
I can't.
You can't prove what thought you just had to someone.
No.
You know, I could say
I can't prove I love you.
Exactly.
You know, I can make out like I love you, because I don't really know. I can make out like I love you, but I can't show anybody. Show me how you love Ben. Well, there it is. It's there it is. There it is. There are things you can't.
There are many things that you can't prove.
So But in my experience of life, I've definitely seen karma come back to me. Sometimes good or not good. I like skillful. Yeah, I like that phrase, skillful or unskillful karma, because that's what it's about. It's about it's very much like God. It doesn't matter whether you believe there's a God or not. It doesn't matter whether you believe karma exists or not. If they do, then it doesn't matter whether you believe in them or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I like about karma, when I used to talk to people about it more, was okay, let's say karma doesn't exist, but let's say you take the principle of skillful and unskillful behavior, just that principle, and you look at every religion, every major system, they're all saying do good, be kind, be nice. In the Bible it says turn the other cheek. Now that's such a massive, for me, that's a massive teaching of karma. Turn the other cheek, because what that says to me, in my understanding of karma, is it's not just about don't hit back. What it is it's saying accept your karma, accept it. You've created it, accept it. Don't create more. Don't create more by smacking out and hitting back. That's profound, and that is exactly in keeping with the law of karma. So yeah, we've got this skillful and unskillful thing. You can behave in ways that are kind and nice, and or you can go down the other path. And we have free will. You can do whatever you want. But there are always consequences, and there may not appear to be for some people. There generally are. If people abuse their bodies, don't really care about it, go out there are consequences that come back.
Yeah.
So karma is relevant. It is there. It may not be as easily perceived as the law is, but I mean, what's your understanding of the law of karma then?
I think you've covered it well. I think
I have.
Yeah, funnily enough, it's very similar to yours. No, I think I like that take, and I've taken that same approach actually when speaking about people's belief in like God or the divine, is that generally if it's helping you to become a better person, and act in a way that is
doing
more
less
skillful,
damage to you,
and less damage to you and others, you can label it as karma, or you can not attach that label. But the same principles apply in how you're behaving. It's going to affect how you behave. And actually, interestingly, I had this conversation with someone recently where they were asking me, since because I was under your influence and you taught me a lot when I was really young, and then also our teacher, what were the things that you were able to actually utilize when you were younger? And one of the really key things that I remember is karma. Because when I was younger and was contemplating doing things that might have been stupid, it came to my mind, this is not going to be good for me, because I understood at that time, I had a basic understanding. You do good things, skillful things, you're probably going to get that back. Likewise, if you do things that aren't skillful, you're going to get that back. And so I had that understanding, and it definitely helped me. And I can't pinpoint the exact scenarios, but I do remember in particular occasions having that and thinking, oh yeah, this might not be a good thing for me to do, because it's going to come back to me. It sounds like quite a selfish way of looking at it, but it did stop me in certain situations.
As it should. It absolutely should. I think that's the key. I think that if you believe in karma, then you absolutely definitely need to do what I call play the karma game. And that sounds terrible, but what I mean is there is skillful and unskillful karma. If you believe in karma, that means that you need to start thinking about what you're saying, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and because it is about intent, and intent is very cleverly hidden sometimes. That's the other thing. I'll give you an example. I remember an old story about in Tibet, where the population was predominantly Buddhist at the time before the Chinese invasion. Some fishermen used to catch fish, put them into a fish tank, and then people would come along and pay them to create good karma by taking the fish out of the tank and putting them back into the water.
Love it.
And so that's playing the game of karma, but the wrong way, because you can't cheat God.
Can't manipulate karma.
You can't cheat God. Excuse me a second. Yeah, so we were saying about manipulating karma, and I was saying that there's a story that goes back to Tibet, where the fishermen used to go and fish and catch fish and put them into a big tank.
Yeah.
And then people would come along and buy the fish to then pick them up and drop them back in the sea to create good karma for themselves. And of course, you know, that's a naive way of playing the karma game, because that's not, you're trying to cheat God. You can't cheat God.
Yeah.
There's no way you can cheat God. So that's not going to create good karma for you, because your intent is wrong. You're trying to cheat.
Yeah. You're not doing it for a good outcome for the fish.
And
your outcome is for yourself.
With karma, if you're trying to do something positively with karma, I think you have to look for the sacrifice in you to do it. So you see a homeless person and you click your phone on and you go over and here's tenner, mate. I've got all the best. I'm giving him a tenner. Put it up on my Facebook page, and it's like, that's contrived, But say
it's not as pure, is it?
No. And you see a guy down there. Maybe you think, I haven't got any money with me, but you just go and sit down with him and talk to him as a human being and kind of go, how are you? What's going on in your life? And make that connection. And you don't want anything from it. You're just recognizing that they're in a difficult situation and recognizing them as a human being, rather than the millions of people who are walking by and just ignoring them. I think there's for karma, there needs to be an element of sacrifice, almost
of wanting the fruits, like Krishna sort of says as well.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a side angle, isn't it? But
you should just do it for the right reason, rather than
the reward.
For the intent. Now that's not always possible. So when none of us are saints. We're normal people.
Speak for yourself.
And you'll go to somebody sometime, and you'll go to do something sometime, and you'll think, oh, I'll do that. And then your ego kind of goes, oh, you're just doing that to try and create a bit of good karma,
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, isn't it? Then?
And it does. It happens, especially when you start to understand. So what I say to myself then is, there may be a bit of that. There may be a bit of that. But it's still the right thing to do. So I've recognised it. I've seen what you're saying, what I'm saying to myself, really, or what I'm trying to stop me doing it because of that, But I'll go, it's still the right thing to do. So maybe there is a little bit of self-interest in there. It's inevitable, because there's a bit of self-interest in everything we do, almost,
Yeah.
But we're trying to flatten out that self-interest bit by bit by bit until it becomes pure compassion. Some people have got huge hearts, and it just comes out of them without any of this, any thought, any preconceived idea.
Yeah, that is a really interesting one, because I've noticed a similar thing in myself, and people have asked me before about, for example, it's slightly different, but how we talk about offering food up. Mm-hmm. People say, well, what about if I'm already halfway through when I decide to offer it up? I'm like, it's still fine.
Yeah, it is.
Because your intent is good. Your intent was like, oh, I've noticed that I've not done it, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, so it's awareness, isn't it? And the karma thing is, how they always say, be here now, in this moment, not thinking out of there and over there. If you're here now in this moment, then you'll get what's going on. You'll see it, and you'll think, oh, I'm about to have my food. I know, I'll think. But if you're thinking about other things, like you say, it might suddenly come to you halfway through, or right at the end, just as you're finishing. But it's still better to kind of go, the right thing to do for me in what I'm trying to achieve here is to offer it up. So I'm going to do it even if I've missed the point of it, and then next time maybe I'll remember. Yeah, in time. So it's
just it's the incremental improvement in yourself, isn't it?
That's what it's about. Yeah,
it's not expecting yourself to be absolutely perfect immediately when you start doing a practice. No. It's just that tiny step that you've become slightly more aware, and you think, oh yeah, I want to be doing this now. I nearly said you should be doing this now, but I want to be doing this now. maybe offering up food or doing a nice kind deed or whatever it might be.
All of them are retraining your mind, aren't they? They're all trying to get you out of the place that you were in that isn't working for you to a place where you're more, you're better, and you're, as a human being, you're developing.
Yeah,
but positively.
When you think about that, it's a lot of those types of things. They're when you're putting the focus on someone else or something else rather than yourself, isn't it?
It's very easy to do,
because even the offering the food up, the more pure a place that it comes from, the more you're doing it out of like pure gratitude for what you feel as though the divine has given you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the food's been given to you, so I'm doing it. I'm giving it back to you. I'm offering it back as like a selfless thing, really. And karma, in the way that we understand it and believe it, is the same in that when you do things generally for others from a purer part of yourself, it's all about that, isn't it? It's the doing things for others,
but you've got to watch out for the interplay of the ego, haven't you? Because the ego will be sitting there going, well, you didn't offer your food up, did you? And he didn't offer his food up, and they didn't offer their, and you've got to see that and go, oh no, forget that.
That's where it starts snaking in, isn't it? And becoming the spiritual pride comes into play.
Yeah, your ego will always shapeshift. It will once you. We used to talk about it like a balloon. If you squeeze it here, a partly inflated balloon, if you take control of it here, it squeezes out here, or it squeezes out there, or between the knuckles. So you take hold of it, and you think, right, I'm going to make sure I offer my food up every time. And then the ego's going, yeah, but he's not, she's not.
Yeah.
And then you've got to kind of go, yeah, but they don't matter, because they are people, and of course they matter. But in this instance, all that matters is what I'm doing. Their beliefs, what they want to do, that's their responsibility, and that's a big thing, I think, as well. I mean, we're ranging away from karma a little bit here, but when I used to teach you when you were little, I don't know if you remember, but I always used to make a point of saying to you, this is what I believe, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I used to say, this is what I believe, but I could be wrong. I think I've got great guidance. I think this, but I could be wrong. And you need to explore it yourself. You need to try what I suggest, see if it works for you. And, and if you find something that's better, that works better, or if I'm doing something wrong, let me know, and then we all start to go.
Stop speaking to me.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah.
It's true.
One of the things about karma that people don't grasp sometimes is, and it's a really nice little story or scenario rather to explain it. So if you were driving down the road and there's a cyclist in front of you and they're really irritating you, and you drive by them and knock them off the road. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. Yeah, anybody who understands karma, it's your intent was to knock them out of the way. You are creating a boomerang that is going to come back to you, a big boomerang that is going to come back to you and hit you or future you at some point.
Yeah.
What's not so easily understood, and where some people have a problem, is if I'm driving down the road and the cyclist's riding down the road at the side, and suddenly the cyclist hits a bump and falls off, and I go straight over them and kill them. That's where people's perception of karma gets a bit messy, because what's happening there is that's the cyclist's karma. Your intent was not there at all.
Yeah.
Having said that, you've just run over somebody, and as a human being, that's going to create some suffering in you. It's gonna hurt you on a massive level. That's the karma that you've had before coming back to you.
Yeah, from something else. So there's a blend of things going on in that one situation.
And karma is never one thing or the other. There's always a mass of minutiae things going on at the same time. And that's a really it's not a lovely, it's a horrible story, but it's a great way of illustrating
intent.
You've created no karma in that situation. You've paid off some karma in that
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
and you just happen to be the instrument of karma for somebody else. And
the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was something that I've noticed when I look at some of the comments when I've made videos on karma before, and I can see where people get this idea from, but it's related to people feeling as though God is judging, and that it's like punishment.
I understand that.
I understand it, but I try to keep it. I find it difficult because I'm like it's actually really simple in that all it is it's like the world is a mirror, and when you act with intent, that that action is then returned to you. There's no judgment, there's no punishment as such. Everything is your own doing. It's like that is then quite challenging because it's like you have to then take responsibility for something you're experiencing now
that you didn't do,
that you did that you can't remember, or you've got no recollection of, or
absolutely
understanding of.
Absolutely,
that's hard, but it's understandable as well why people would.
But it's the
feel
only
that
way. If you were in a society that believed in karma, but didn't believe in reincarnation, it's the only way. The only way to understand that what you do now is going to affect the next life is through that
realization.
Yeah, through that realization. But yeah, I mean, karma it is called the law of karma, and like the law of the land, when if you go 35 miles an hour in a 30 zone and you get picked up for it, yes, you're being judged, but only by society standards. It's a law. It is what it is. But it's a law we've created. We are part of the creators of the karmic law.
Yeah,
Which is fundamentally, as we are all a part of, however people want to talk. If you want to talk about it as being a part of the oneness, if you want to talk about it as being a part of God, whatever works for how people understand it, because none of us really do. Not completely.
Yeah, we've got ideas.
Yeah, it's a huge mountain, and none of us really know all of the sides of it, do we?
No,
so
possibly.
So yeah, I've lost my train of thought now. I got onto a mountain. I love mountains.
You just start picturing them.
Yeah.
The judgment thing is a tricky one, isn't it? The judgment, the perception that what I'm receiving now or what I do in my life is being judged.
That's what I was trying to say. That it's a law that's been set up, and we operate within this law. There's no judgment there. It's just what you do, you're going to get back. That's simple. And once you understand karma, then you then really have to become much more careful in what you're thinking and saying and doing, really, because it will come back. And look for your ego hiding your true intent from you as well, because it does it very, very well.
And then on the flip side of it, the more, because we're naturally looking at it from what you receive negatively.
Yes, yeah, and
it works the other way, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah,
it's no one sort of pulls the judgment idea or the punishment idea when they're going through a really good time in their life.
Yeah.
It's only when we're going through the hardships that we feel as though that it's happening from that point of view. But
and in a similar way, you can, again, you could be doing a lot of good in this life that doesn't come back to you directly.
This life.
I mean, you're still. The good thing about doing good is you feel good doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does come back in that way, but maybe material benefits and things like that won't come to you now. But you're laying the road for your future, aren't you?
Yeah.
Your boomerangs that you're sending out with your good behaviour are paving that future for you.
Yeah. It's like the mountain talk that you were on there. As you sort of stepping up the mountain, you banking, if you like, into your good karma, and at some point you're going to get to the view, which is what you've been, the receiving of what you've put in, if you like.
Yeah,
it's I like looking at it. I think you used to talk about it in terms of like a bank account.
Yeah,
and that the bank account is exact. It's not wishy-washy, and maybe you'll get this or maybe you get that. It's exact to the penny.
Yeah,
and depending on what your actions are, you're banking into something that's either going to aid you gonna be of use to you. It's going to be positive in the way that you
Absolutely.
experience it, or it's going to be the opposite of that. And we, at all times, as we're acting with intent, are placing it in one of those things, one of those areas.
People don't realize you're acting with intent all the time. So you're constantly creating karma. You know, you're constant, which is why, you know, all of the spiritual systems across the world advise you to watch what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing.
Yeah.
Even if they don't talk about karma, they're still talking about that, and it, you know, that it makes sense. And it doesn't have to be big things either. It can be simple things. You know, it can be, you can be sat with 3 or 4 people, and a few of the people start talking negatively about someone, and you can kind of, you know, bring it round a bit, take them away, help them to get away from creating that karma for themselves. You know, as you start to think a little bit broader, you can kind of go, well, yeah, I know what you're saying, but, you know, they did this for me and it was really nice of them. So I know what you're saying, but, and then take them away from it, you know, and you can start then helping other people without them realizing it to benefit.
I remember Des talking about a hangman situation. And I think you asked the question, actually, how would it work with someone that is employed into a job that would cause them potentially to do something that would harm another person, so a military person, or in this question it was related to a hangman. And I remember him saying that if the person doing let's say the pulling of the rope to hang someone did it with just a totally neutral mind, there was no intent as to, oh, you horrible, so when he did it, or they did it, it was just, this is the job I've got to do, this is what I'm doing at the minute, and it was all neutral. There was none of the intent there. That wouldn't create any repercussions for the person doing it.
No.
But if it was the other way around, and he did do, as I'd mentioned there, oh, you horrible sod, as he pulled the rope or cut the rope or whatever, then, as he say, the law of intent is then in play.
It is.
Because your intent is now totally different. That's, for me, was so clear. Yeah. The same was for like someone in the military.
Exactly. I think, you know, he did the same thing with me. We was talking about the dropping of the Hiroshima bomb at one time.
Don't remember that.
And
the event, obviously, but not the story.
Yeah, and he just said that, you know, if the guy who's pressing the trigger for the bomb to drop, knowing it's going to kill hundreds of thousands, if he's kind of going, yeah, you deserve this, then he's creating something. You know, he's not creating a nuclear bomb on himself intent, but his intent is creating negative karma for himself. Whereas, as you said, you know, if it's kind of like, if he's dropping it and he's thinking, poor buggers are going to get this, you know, if he's, or more importantly, not just, I'm just doing my job kind of thing,
just neutral, just
empty. Then there's he's not creating karma. Then he's not creating that malice and maliciousness that was there in the other one. But it's a tough topic, and I think you can dive into it so deeply, and really it's easy to just keep it simple and kind of go, what am I thinking now? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it useful? Am I trying to avoid things? Am I trying to deliberately, you know, look at your intent, look at what you're actually trying to do, hidden underneath the, you know, what you're doing, and then you can dig out that negative karma sometimes, and sometimes it's habitual. You know, we sometimes cover things up, we paper over our real reasons. And it's important to dig them out and have a look at them and think, why am I doing this really? And, you know, is my intent good?
Yeah, that leads me on. I probably won't. I'll wrap it up fairly soon, but that leads me on to the final thing that I just thought of there, which is another question people put to me when I've made these videos before, which I think is a brilliant question, which is, okay, if everything that I create is down to my intent, what about the fact that a lot of that is based upon the conditioning that I've learned through this life? A lot of what we do habitually, as you say, is based upon a lot of conditioning, things people have taught us, things people we've learned, things we've
culture
learned,
we're in as
culture.
well.
Yeah. But then that's karma.
Yeah,
that's based upon.
When I was talking about you paving the road ahead for yourself, you know, in the next life, and that's the karma I'm talking about. That's paving that for you. Yeah, you're walking into what you're creating now. You know, so if you, I don't know, if you're horribly racist, you're creating that for yourself in the future. You know, whether it's here or next life or next, but it's got to be. You describe it as a bank, and that's the way I understand it as well. And you know, the funds build up in the bank, or the debt builds up in the bank, and at some point it gets called in.
Yeah,
you know, and but you're right that the culture you grew up in now, you created in previous lives by your efforts, and you know, and by the things you did, and your intent in everything that you do. And that's a really hard thing to take on board, especially if you're in a really bad place now. And but the if you are, then the lesson here is create the future now.
Yeah.
With every thing you do now, start to create a different future for yourself now as well in this life, but also for whatever happens after you leave this life. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there can't be a bad side to that, can there? Even if karma was wrong, if everything you say is wrong, you're still doing good things for people. You're still helping people. You're still trying to do the right thing. So as a human being, you're developing in the right direction. You know,
even if you're doing the wrong,
even if
which we all
this
are,
is rubbish,
which we all do.
yeah, exactly.
We all.
You know, and you know, spirituality is development of you as a human being. That it is the evolution of you.
Yeah.
And people, you know, some people, you know, I remember hearing people like criticize Gandhi, you know, oh, he used to do this and he used to do that. And then, because he was evolving, you know, don't look at what he used to do, look where he was when he left.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's about. We all start lower down because we come in and we've got conditioning, and what we've got to do is grow over that and develop over it and improve. And like you're doing, you know, you're trying to help a lot of people by all this fluff that you put by all this stuff that you put out. You're trying to help people. And so that's, you know, your intent there is good. You know, if ever your intent swapped and you were thinking, oh, I want to make loads of money out of this, I want to do this, then it wouldn't go so well for you, I don't think. You know?
No, all the impurities would be coming out, wouldn't they?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which naturally, like every human being, I have to be careful of.
Absolutely.
And that's the honest truth, is that everyone, no matter what you're doing or what point you're at, you have to be aware with yourself and watch for those aspects of yourself that want to rise and want to be, as Jeff Thompson says, fed. They want to be fed, and it's looking out for them, isn't it? And noticing, okay, I see that, but hopefully you've got enough.
So I suppose
awareness.
The end message from this is, if you didn't know about karma, you know a bit more about it now. If you don't believe in karma, it doesn't matter. Still try and follow the positive ideals of it, because it still pushes you forward.
Still helpful for you, isn't it? Whether you want to believe it as such or not, just the idea of doing good.
You know, that it's, for me, it all fits. Reincarnation, karma, it all fits in. Where that isn't there, it doesn't make sense. It does make sense to me when it's all put in. You know, when you talk about the evolution of the soul and the growth of us heading back to the divine, or to the oneness of everything, however people want to talk about it, karma and reincarnation are a massive, massive part of that. And it just, for me, it makes sense. But that's all right. And if it doesn't make sense for people, that's okay too. You know, find something that does. Find something that does make sense to you and keep evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. We'll wrap it up there, I think, then.
Thank you very much.
No worries.